At one point, Petr Yan was viewed as someone who could be the bantamweight GOAT.
People talk about best boxing in MMA. Dude, Peter's, I think he's up there. He might be the guy.
Undefeated in the UFC, unbelievable boxing, and destroying legend after legend. But just as quickly as he took over the sport, it all fell apart, thanks to one stupid mistake.
Thought he was coming up, and Petr tried to catch him as he was coming up, but it was 100% illegal.
After that, the world wrote Yan off. 3 straight defeats. Entering his 30s, it looked to be all over for Yan as a title contender. But then, all of a sudden, he did the impossible, ending Merab Dvalishvili's 14-fight win streak to shock the world and reclaim his title.
When you're gonna fight a guy like Merab, like, that is the masterclass. Like, sure. Put on a clinic.
Now, the Russian star is better than anyone gave him credit for. So this is the rise, fall, and rise again of Petr Yan. Growing up in a small northern Russian town in the Arctic Circle, childhood wasn't easy for Petr Yan. He was often getting into street fights, trouble at school, and it forced his family to move around town in order to give Yan a better start at life.
You said that you used to fight like 6 times a day when you were a youngster in school. 6 times a day? Why were you fighting so much? Why were you so angry?
No, я не был злой, я переехал с деревни в город.
I wasn't angry, I just moved from the village to the city. I was a new guy, and a lot of the city boys were trying to pick up on me, so I just had to stand my ground.
But those cold, rough streets lit a fire under Yan, something he still attributes his success today.
Ну, вообще Сибирь — это такое достаточно холодное место, так скажем, выживают в большей степени. Ну и такое воспитание проходит.
In order to defend himself properly, and as an avenue to release his aggression, Yan started Taekwondo at a young age. But it wasn't enough for him, so Petr started sneaking into boxing classes behind his older brother to get a taste of true fighting. And once his family discovered the natural talent he possessed, he went all in on boxing as a kid.
Я начал заниматься с 6 класса, с 12 лет. Начал заниматься, в принципе, много чем занимался, но основной задачей моя был бокс.
After 8 years of training, Yan was awarded the Master of Sport title in Russia, becoming national champion at 64 kg. Then he transitioned into MMA and achieved the very same thing. Even on his debut, you could see just how much potential he had. But before he made it to the UFC, Yan conquered the Russian MMA scene, becoming the ACB bantamweight champion, avenging the only loss on his record to win that title. After his UFC debut back in 2018 and a first-round finish, the world knew that Yan was clearly something special. With a couple more wins under his belt, Yan was about to go on a Legends Whooping tour. 4 fights, 4 longtime staples of the lighter weight classes, and the Russian made light work of all of them. First John Dodson, then Jimmy Rivera, then absolutely brutalizing Uriah Faber.
And he looked damn good tonight until Yan started catching him and lighting him up. And Faber's tough, he's durable, he's well-rounded, he's a good fighter.
After that, it was Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo with the vacant UFC title on the line. Despite Aldo's age, he was still one of the most ferocious strikers in the UFC and had a ton of championship experience to go with it. Someone who was the very first featherweight champion in UFC history.
They were so sure about Jose Aldo. They made him the UFC champion at a press conference. Are you aware of that? Jose Aldo had never stepped foot in the octagon, let alone thrown a punch in it, let alone won a fight in it. And they declared him the world champion.
But while the fight started out close, as it went on, Yan's volume took over, ultimately destroying and finishing the great Jose Aldo in the 5th round.
Thought he looked good. I thought Aldo looked great for people that were criticizing him, saying he doesn't deserve another title shot. Horrible stoppage by the referee. Should have been stopped way sooner.
And when you looked at the bantamweight landscape at the time, there weren't many worthy contenders to Yan. His striking was too clean, cardio too strong, and the takedown defense was on point.
As a fight fan, you ask me if I like fights like guys like Yan, that's the style of fight that I love to watch, man. That's the just violent,
Dude,
but technical and just fun, man.
If that was a hot sauce, what would it be called?
That's championship edition right there.
There you go.
For his first title defense, Yan was put against Aljamain Sterling, the classic striker versus wrestler matchup. It wasn't the most ideal opponent, but if Yan could keep it on the feet, there would be no way he'd lose. Or at least, that's what the MMA world thought. The fight itself was pretty competitive, but it looked like Yan had too many rounds in the bank early on. But the judges weren't needed that night, because one poorly timed knee from Yan would end up changing the trajectory of MMA at 135 pounds for good, and it ended up costing him a huge chunk of his career.
Yeah, it sucked. It was a good fight. I mean, that was a fight that everybody was excited about tonight. Everybody knew it was going to be good, and well, that's a bad one.
There was speculation that Yan had asked his corner if throwing a knee would be illegal, but either way, the responsibility lies with him. It's perhaps the most frustrating way to lose a UFC title, a fight you were all but certainly going to win, thrown away due to one bad decision.
He had a knee and two hands.
Yeah.
So he was fucking grounded.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like there was no question about it, he was grounded, but I think maybe he thought he was coming up and Petr tried to catch him as he was coming up, but it was 100% illegal.
Yeah.
While Aljo was crowned champ, the UFC world still felt Yan was the best fighter at bantamweight, and that it would only be a matter of time before he reclaimed the title.
Just imagine, he tired of thinking about me and I didn't even think about him at all, you know. He had this long layoff, I had a different opponent, I fought, now he's my next target that I'm gonna beat up. And after the fight, Saturday night, everyone gonna forget about him. Just another clowns are gonna be forgotten.
So when Yan won the interim title against Corey Sandhagen to set up the rematch, most people thought it was inevitable what would happen. After all, we saw them go at it for 4 rounds, and it was clear who was on track to win.
What is going to be different? All right. And why I say it's a problem is because we have one piece of evidence, and it's not on Aljo's side, who I'm picking. It's on Yan's side. And what that evidence is he's better. Yan's gotten better.
Yet again, the fight between Yan and Aljo was shrouded in controversy. But this time, it was because of the judges' scorecards. It certainly wasn't a robbery, but a lot of people scored the fight for Yan. But either way, it was a defeat, and the Russian was out of the title picture altogether for the first time in years. He was very much expected to come back, put a win or two together, and go for a trilogy with Sterling. But that didn't happen, and no one could have imagined what would come next.
He says that you're not 5'7", that you're 5'5". Can you confirm that you are 5'7"?
There's no way he can't. No, he can't.
Он говорит, что твой рост указан неверно в статистике, что ты ниже, чем указано.
Братан, при чем тут рост? Вы посмотрите на его вид. Это как девушка с дороги, я не знаю.
It's not about the height. Just look at him. He's like a whore on the side of the road.
A fight against Yan seemed like way too much, way too soon for Sean O'Malley. Sugar wasn't even ranked inside the top 10, with his best win being against Thomas Almeida. If it wasn't for the hype surrounding him, he would have had no business stepping into the octagon with the former champion and ranked #1 fighter in the world. In some sportsbooks, Yan was a -500 favorite. It was a striker v striker matchup, and the consensus was that Yan was too technical and too experienced for O'Malley. When he was champion, O'Malley's team knew they'd fight one day and knew the challenge they were in for.
He's so, like, fundamentally, like, everything perfect. His stance, he's rarely in a spot where his chin's open.
Yeah.
Like, rarely. He's always, his chin's tucked, and he doesn't load up on his shots, super explosive. Doesn't load up on his kicks, super explosive. Like, he's
got to be pound for pound top 3. He's got to be, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kamaru is probably #1. Izzy's up there right now, and it probably goes Kamaru, Izzy, Peter.
But when the judges' scorecards were read aloud, it was yet again another split decision, and yet again another defeat. Yan had now lost 3 of his last 4 fights. Before that, his record was 15-1. In just 18 months, he'd gone from the UFC champion who we all thought was unstoppable to someone on a losing streak, rapidly falling down the division's rankings. But the downward spiral wasn't over. In fact, Petr Yan was about to hit an all-time low as he was matched up against a rising contender called Merab Dvalishvili.
You have a great big problem, and if you're in Yan's spot, right, you do not want to become a gatekeeper. Now, I respect Yan for going out and agreeing to this fight. I think that Yan will be the favorite for the fight. I don't know that that's not really good money. Because to get over on Merab in 15 minutes, that's a big ass.
Stylistically, it's a horrible fight for Yan with Merab's endless cardio and relentless wrestling, and it was immediately clear that he couldn't keep away from the grappling. This time, it wasn't a split decision, not a controversial disqualification, instead a unanimous 50-45 domination. 3 losses in a row, and this one was the most emphatic his entire career. And in the opposite way of how fans viewed the former champ when he was at the top, the MMA world kind of wrote him off. He had just hit 30, only 1 win in the past 3 years, and a new champion in Merab who would just 50-45 him again should Yan ever get back to a title fight.
It is near impossible, stylistically, for Petr Yan to beat Merab.
In many people's eyes, it looked like the division had moved on. Yan had his time in the spotlight, but there was a new era at 135 pounds, one that didn't include the Russian. But that was what the fans thought. Quietly, in his own mind, Yan 100% believed he'd have a resurgence that would silence the MMA world. Now lower down in the division, Yan didn't have the luxury of big fights, main events, or all the eyeballs on him. Instead, he'd have to fight those up-and-comers that most felt were the future of the division, the first of which came against Song Yadong, a strong, dangerous all-rounder. But Yan was just about able to pull it out of the bag. Although his win didn't come without problems, he ruptured his ACL and meniscus in the first round, with both requiring surgery to get them fixed.
Getting injured is always bad news, you know. It's a long recovery, rehab process, you know. But it's also a part of our job. We are fighters, that's why we're different from everyone else. And being able to overcome these obstacles, that's how you differentiate from being just a challenger and a champion.
The injuries kept him sidelined for the majority of 2024, halting his resurgence. But when he returned, he looked like the Petr Yan of old.
His feet are always under him. He's never out of position. You know what he does? A lot of people say, oh, you don't move his head, you don't do this, you don't. He uses his feet very subtly. He steps out of range. He controls range really, really well. He just steps out to make you miss. That's his defense. That's a big part of his defense.
And switches a lot.
Yeah, just steps out and then steps back in range and then sets up his offense.
Dominating the former 2-time flyweight champ, Davison Figueiredo, and handing Marcus McGee his first defeat in the octagon. It kind of went under the radar, but Yan had really 3 solid wins in a row. And with the champion Merab running laps on the division, they needed a fresh challenger. So perhaps a little surprisingly, Yan got the call up.
We have breaking news right now because Dana White just went on Instagram. They're telling me in my ear, and he just announced that you are the main event of.
But considering how their first fight played out just 18 months prior, not a lot was expected to change. Merab was too dominant, he had too much cardio, and we'd all seen Yan fail to stop his takedowns. If anything, Merab was an even stronger opponent than before. And at similar odds to when Yan rematched Sterling, Merab was a -500 favorite to retain his title.
He can push all 5 rounds, and he's beaten people through unanimous decision. The bad thing is that nobody out-decisions the machine, right? If you're going to beat Merab, you got to put his lights out. Is Petr Yan going to be able to out-grapple Merab? No. He wasn't able to do it the first time they fought. Is he going to be able to outstrike Merab? That's kind of hard because Merab is getting better on the feet. He's believing himself.
But as the fight started, it was clear those takedowns he got pretty comfortably before weren't so easy this time around. And on the feet, Yan was making Merab pay.
At one point, he kicks him in the body, and Merab's like, ah! Visually and audibly hurt, okay? Screaming in pain. Yan saw that, went back to the body again, kept ripping to the body, throwing head kicks, landing the shots, busting him up all over the place. The eyes were cut, the nose was bent, right? It was a beautiful performance.
As the rounds went on, most thought Merab's cardio would become a factor, but Yan clearly learned his lessons from their first fight. because his cardio matched Dvalishvili's, and in the end, he reclaimed his title.
What a masterclass!
He looked great. I was so surprised.
When you're gonna fight a guy like Merab, like that is the masterclass. Like,
sure.
He put on a clinic.
I didn't think he was going to be able to do that for 5 rounds. I thought he'd have one, maybe max 2, and I thought Merab was just going to do what Merab does. I was so wrong.
Bro, his training camp must have been hell.
Had to.
Had to be hell.
Had to.
Be. I mean, he must have done some. I mean, it looked like it. I saw some videos of it. It looked like he was doing some wild strength and conditioning and plyometrics, and he knew what he was in for.
Just 2 years ago, the MMA world had written off Petr Yan, starting to get old, too much competition at bantamweight, and horrible stylistic matchups in his way. But now, he just broke the 4th longest win streak in UFC history, hasn't lost a fight in almost 3 years, and most importantly, is UFC champion yet again. The scary thing is, this latest chapter in the career of Petr Yan could end up being his best yet. He's got more championship experience, learned the lessons from defeat, and now he might be as unstoppable as we all thought he was. There's just one major roadblock still, a trilogy with Merab Dvalishvili. Get through that, and Yan could go down as one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, we did a deep dive on why fixing a UFC fight is almost impossible. If you're interested, you can check that out here.